What a day it has been. The third phase of elections, 91 constituencies, 91 reporters of Headlines Today who've been on the field through the course of the day, getting you the latest of how India is voting on this election. It is a decisive vote, the first big test for BJP's Prime Ministerial candidate Narendra Modi. I'm Mahrukh Inayat, and from this special set, we're going to go to all our reporters on the ground and tell you exactly what India was thinking as the third phase of voting has just come to an end a short while back. 91 reporters, like I mentioned, also in the studio from the BJP, Dr. Sambit Patra, and from the Congress party, Tehseen Poonawala is joining us. We're going to look essentially at Delhi during the next half hour. But before I talk to you about Delhi, before I talk to you about what Delhi really wants out of this election, because it's a crucial one, remember, for the capital, we're going to look at what you have been sending us through the course of the day. We're calling it your selfies. You've been sending us your photographs after you have voted with your finger showing exactly. So see right here on the screens, that's all of you sending us your reporter selfies or your own selfies. But on the ground right now, we have Shiv Arur and Kamalji joining us, and also Maha Siddiqui. First, let me start with you, Shiv. You've been in Chandni Chowk the whole day. We're getting a figure of 60%. Tell us, what did you get as a sense on the ground? Is there really a Modi wave as the BJP is claiming?
We just spoke to the Delhi electoral officer a short while ago, and we got an official figure.
Okay, we'll go to Shiv in just a bit. Kamaljeet is also joining us. Shiv, we'll come to you in just a bit. Kamaljeet, tell us, through the course of the day, we've also seen a couple of controversies crop up. But as far as Delhi is concerned, it is looking at a referendum of the Aam Aadmi Party, clearly after what we saw in the Delhi Assembly elections. On the ground, what is the sense that you got?
It's more than 64% at this point of time, and could well be in 70s and 75%. That's a high voter turnout. And remember, earlier in the assembly elections, just about last year, it was close to roughly around 66%. And that is why Delhi really voted for change. We'll really have to see whether Narendra Modi's idea has been sold to the people as such. But definitely, we saw long queues. Northeast Delhi did come out in large numbers. That's the constituency I was looking at. There have been many controversies, including that one of the marriage of Narendra Modi. But remember, that was a child marriage. We tried to speak to a lot of people who had various viewpoints, and it didn't really impact. But yes, the Congress is trying to actually get to that particular issue itself. But right here in Delhi, which voted for both BJP and Aam Aadmi Party, there's a huge challenge for Narendra Modi, who's aiming at 272, whether BJP would be able to snatch away those particular numbers from Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress.
Okay, let me ask Tehseen Poonawala of the Congress party. Tehseen, as far as the Congress party is concerned, it's been a lackluster campaign in Delhi. Perhaps after the state assembly elections, the dent has been so much that the Congress party hasn't been able to come out of it. With the kind of voter turnout that we're seeing, poll pundits usually say that with a high voter percentage, it's usually a decision against the incumbent. What's the Congress party feeling?
Now let me give you a couple of facts. High voter turnout in Madhya Pradesh, where the BJP, where they won, or in Chhattisgarh, where again they won, you say it's for BJP, but high voter turnout in Delhi, you say it's against Congress. So I think that's a little unfair. I agree with your reporter that this is a vote for change. Therefore, the change that last time the people bought in was the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP, and both realized, the people of Delhi have realized. I was at in fact, you were hosting the show with Arvind Kejriwal, and I asked him the RTI question that how many, forget flyovers, roads, how many toilets did you sanction in 49 days? He claims to have done unparalleled work. The answer to that RTI and Arvind Kejriwal himself was zero.
Looking,
so now people of Delhi have seen.
At the others, I'm talking about the Congress
so the
party.
question is, the people of Delhi have seen zero progress by Aam Aadmi Party. They also know the Aam Aadmi Party is trying to split up traditional Congress votes only so that Narendra Modi wins. With the fact that Narendra Modi, what he represents is not for a unified India, is something that is so polarizing. The fact of the matter is, people have seen the development Congress brought in versus the hype of Narendra Modi and the false promises and the running away of
we'll know about
Kejriwal.
that. Let me go across to Maha Siddiqui also, who's with us. Maha, you have been through the day following developments on the ground. We've talked about the Congress party. On the other hand, I want to look at the Aam Aadmi Party. Clearly, it seems that a bit of the sheen has gone off. The last attack that we saw on Arvind Kejriwal somehow brought him back into the news, which had the others saying that this was cleverly crafted right before the elections. What's your sense on the ground?
Well, very interestingly, Maruk, I'd like to bring an incident to your notice. A few days ago, I was speaking to an auto guy, and remember, Auto Walas was a lobby that was strongly pro Arvind Kejriwal. He said that if it comes to Delhi, particularly the assembly elections, they don't mind giving Arvind Kejriwal a second chance. But at the national level, because they ran away, is what he said, after 49 days, they do not trust Aam Aadmi Party with the national elections. So this is just a layman's viewpoint, but I wanted to bring that to the fore to explain what is happening on the ground, Maru, because what we have seen is that even though the Congress at this point in time is jittery because of the triangular contest that was seen in most of the constituencies in Delhi, they do also understand that their traditional votes will be split up because of the Aam Aadmi Party, even though the sheen, as you are rightly mentioning, has gone off a bit from Aam Aadmi Party. But certain candidates that they put up in particular constituencies seem to be strong only because of the fact that they can dent the vote of the Congress party. And that has clearly worried the Congress party, because the BJP stands nothing to lose really if we look at it that way.
But there is still some worry, Dr. Patra, for the BJP, because even though the Aam Aadmi Party might cut into the anti-Congress votes, at the same time, what could have been a straight contest between the BJP and the Congress, you now have a spoiler. So don't say that the BJP is not concerned and there's a Modi way.
Not at all. I mean, as far as the spoiler is concerned, the spoiler itself has been spoilt. In the sense that, look, I mean, if we speak on facts, you would agree to me that the Aam Aadmi Party came into existence because it took an anti-Congress stand right before the assembly election, and there was incumbency, anti-incumbency against the incumbent Congress government. And that's the reason as to why, though the BJP was the largest political dispensation, the Aam Aadmi Party stood second with 28 seats. But ironically, after the Delhi assembly, leave aside the running away business, a runaway chief minister, in fact, the Aam Aadmi Party had an emphasis shift where it started attacking Narendra Modi, and probably they started aligning with the Congress.
Is the Aam Aadmi Party a worry or not?
Not at all. It is not a worry, and that's the reason as to why it is not a worry. I'm explaining that. Remember, you yourself on the headlines today had shown a survey which said that people had said before the assembly elections that we may vote for the Aam Aadmi Party for the assembly elections, but for the national scenario, it is Mr. Narendra Modi. Okay. So I believe the disillusionment with the Aam Aadmi Party, the romance with Aam Aadmi Party is over, and the affair is broken now.
Okay, the romance with the Aam Aadmi Party is over is what Dr. Patra says. I want to go to Gaurav Sawant at this point. And while these pictures play of all of you who've sent in your photographs, Gaurav, you were at Ghaziabad, where essentially it was being seen as a triangular contest between Ilmi, Filmi and Fauji. But you were able to bring out a very interesting point that perhaps the BSP might be the dark horse as far as Ghaziabad is concerned.
The BSP has been campaigning in that area much longer than any of the others. The BSP had an advantage. They have a Brahmin candidate, they have a Dalit vote base. So can they crack the caste code and win the election? Or can the general who's campaigned in Ghaziabad almost like a military operation? Ghaziabad divided into 8 sectors, an army general, an RSS Pracharak and the BJP all in charge of one sector each, with military precision going door-to-door campaigning, but they had barely a fortnight to do so. So can they crack the code? Well, there's also infighting in the BJP that perhaps Sambit Patra would like to talk about. Less time to campaign, that's another aspect. And two, Ghaziabad is a very, very complex constituency. While there's a sizable urban vote, can the general write that Narendra Modi wave to power in Ghaziabad? Or will this silent wave of the Bahujan Samaj Party stall him? That remains the big question.
Okay, at this point, clearly in this election, I'm going to come back to my guests and reporters, but in this election, there are a huge number of heavyweights. Even today, while the voting was going on, we saw not just in terms of the voters, but also the ones that they are voting for come among the top class or top brass of the political class, as they say. Let's listen into some of them as they spoke optimistically about this election.
According to you, for the voter, what is the biggest issue this time?
For the voter, the biggest issue for any voter with 700 million people in this country, not living in the kind of conditions that they should live in, the biggest issue is poverty. The biggest issue is your everyday needs, your basic rights, water, electricity, Awas, a roof on your head. food, sanitation. These are the biggest issues.
देखिए ये चुनाव एक तरह से धर्म सच्चाई और बुराई के बीच में लड़ाई है और मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि अंत में जनता की जीत होगी, आम आदमी जीतेगा और दिल्ली में मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है। आज दिल्ली में चुनाव हो रहे हैं कि दिल्ली में सातों की सातों सीट आम आदमी जीतेगा, जनता जीतेगी, आम आदमी पार्टी।
Let me cast my vote along with my family and then I'll come and talk to you. Don't worry. I will not leave this place before I have spoken to you. Please. Okay, sir. Okay.
And let me go across to Shiv Arur, who has been in Chandni Chowk through the course of the day. Shiv, we just heard Kapil Sibal speaking. Obviously, he's trying to sound extremely optimistic. But it is a very tough fight for him. Dr. Harshvardhan, clearly seen as a hot favourite. And then the Aam Aadmi Party's Ashutosh. What's the sense on the ground there?
Very interesting elements from Chandni Chowk, Maruka. I can literally count on my fingers the number of people I spoke to, and we spoke to many hundreds of people through the day who actually, even had anything even remotely positive to say about the incumbent. That is, of course, Kapil Sibal. Most of what we heard was praise for the Aam Aadmi Party and a kind of cautious optimism about, the so-called Modi wave. I don't know if it exists. Nobody really, can say for sure. But there were several supporters who we spoke to, who were optimistic about the possibility of change for Chandni Chowk, either in the hands of the Aam Aadmi Party or the BJP. Now remember, the Aam Aadmi Party as this new option is being looked at precisely as that. On the other hand, when it comes down to the numbers, when it comes down to the actual crunch, splitting the sizable Muslim vote, which have, swept people like Kapil Sibal to power in the past, could mean advantage BJP and not really advantage the Aam Aadmi Party itself. While there is a certain amount of very valuable openness on the ground as far as the electorate is concerned for the Aam Aadmi Party, it appears that in the final tally, all of that could be advantage Dr. Harshvardhan. And like Narendra Modi, has said in all of his poll advertising before Delhi went to the vote, if you vote for them, you're voting for me. So I think maybe that has had a part to play as well, Maruk.
Tehseen Poonawalla, I want to come to you at this point, because a lot of times they say that people vote differently for state assembly elections and they have a completely different mindset and different options when they're looking for a national election.
That's true.
So the argument that is given by both the BJP and the Congress, that they have seen what happened with the Aam Aadmi Party, the state assembly election, they're not even going to touch them with the barge pole, perhaps might not be that strong.
I agree with what you say on that, and I also agree with what Shiv says. But first, with your point, yes, it is known that in the state elections and central elections, people do tend to vote differently. Recently, Andhra Pradesh in 2009, the elections went simultaneously together, but the numbers did not add up. Karnataka and various other examples. But I agree with what Shiv is saying, and that's my first point that I made to you. The Aam Aadmi Party is splitting the Muslim vote. There is no two ways about it. And some other votes that were traditional Congress votes. Before we started the show, I was talking to Dr. Path about this. The Valmiki vote, for example, where Sheila Dikshit and now Sandeep contest from, is a traditional Congress vote. It's going to the Aam Aadmi Party. With these votes going to the Aam Aadmi Party may not win the Lok Sabha seat, but the Congress does not look very good. I have to admit this today out here.
Okay,
so I think that there is that difficulty.
Okay, Dr.
Since I belong to the Chandni Chowk constituency myself, I have voted there.
Wonderful. So you should have sent us a selfie also.
Yes, I have posted the selfie. But the important point over here is, I want to make two quick admissions over here. First and foremost, look, as far as the Chandni Chowk constituency is concerned, it has the doorstep over which the so-called secularism of Congress breathes its last. That is the Shahi Imam. That is where Sonia Gandhi ji went and appealed that they should vote for the Muslim community should vote for the Congress.
Is there a motive? No, I want to ask you a pointed question because you're going into long rhetoric. I want to ask you a pointed question.
I'm just putting two important points. Secondly, as far as the Aam Aadmi Party is concerned, the candidate of Aam Aadmi Party over here, ex-editor-in-chief of a party, of a news channel, who was known by a single name first, comes to Chandni Chowk and then he gets known as a Gupta ji. This shows the hypocrisy of the Aam Aadmi Party.
No, but I want to ask you a specific question. I want to ask you a specific question.
There is a Modi wave, and that's what Shivaru told very categorically.
No. He said there are some who are claiming there is a Modi wave. He doesn't know that. You are misquoting Shivaru, but at the same time, I'm asking you that across the country, the kind of voting percentages that are coming out, leave Delhi aside, are not the kinds that the BJP had been claiming, saying that everybody will come out and vote. there'll be a landslide voter turnout.
Is there not a landslide voter turnout?
It hasn't been.
Look at the Assam voter turnout, in fact, on 7th. You had,
I'm talking about the
tremendous.
third phase, Dr. Batra.
As far as the third phase is concerned, look, Delhi in the assembly voted for approximately 65-66%. And today we have nearing 70% voting
I said,
as of now.
Apart from Delhi, there hasn't been as kind of a landslide voter turnout that
no, the
BJP
result would
was
be a
claiming.
landslide one on 16th of May. Just wait. What is the way?
Just one point. Maruk, just one point. Since he brought in a very quick point, since he brought in Assam, so much the BJP respects Assam and the Northeast that while the people were voting, they brought in their manifesto, disrespecting the people of the Northeast.
Don't the BJP manifesto. That's the last
the Modi festo. The Modi festo. Sorry, the Modi festo. I'm sorry about it. Slip of the tongue.
Can I answer? No, about the Modi festo.
No.
Insulted the people of the Northeast.
Quick comment that has been made. I have to at this point take a short break just to tell our viewers at this point that we have our reporters with us. We're concentrating on Delhi. The entire state has gone to the polls. Polling has come to an end. 91 constituencies, 91 reporters. We'll have the latest. When 91 constituencies went to the polls, I want to first just concentrate on this wall here, where you have all these photographs. These photographs are the ones that have been sent by you. All the Headlines Today viewers who've sent us the photographs after they have cast their vote. It's very heartening. All those photographs, just keep them coming in and they'll be showcased on the channel. Thank you so much, all of you, for sending in those photographs. At this point, Preeti Sharma Menon of the Aam Aadmi Party is also joining us live from Mumbai. We, of course, have Tehseen Poonawalla and Dr. Batra from the BJP, Tehseen Poonawalla representing the Congress Party. Preeti Sharma Menon, it seems, and that's the sense, at least Headlines Today is getting on the ground, that perhaps the Aam Aadmi Party has lost a bit of that sheen that it had earlier on. The campaign lacked that luster, and similarly, even today on the ground, as we were getting a sense, Aam Aadmi Party doesn't seem to be able to crack it this time. That's the sense on the ground.
Well, you have the advantage of being there on the ground. I only have reports which I've heard from my colleagues over there. But I feel that there was a huge amount of euphoria when people went to vote today in Delhi. And the voter turnout has been tremendous. It's because people are now ready for change and they are ready to exercise their vote and their opinion in how the country is going to be shaped. And I think that will really benefit AAP, because these new voters who want change will be voting for AAP.
Okay, Preeti Sharma Menon is quite confident. Before I come to Tehseen and all, okay, let me first come to you. Go ahead.
I believe, though Preeti is a fantastic person, but I would take a jibe at her and say that, look, such was the identity crisis of Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi after the initial romance and furor that we all saw, that they had to take refuge behind inks, eggs and slaps. I'm telling this is jibe. Don't take me on my words. But there was an element of skepticism that probably they have started a department of ink, eggs and slaps just to bolster their image.
Okay, I want to see what Preeti Sharma Menon says to that. Go ahead, Tehseen.
No, but the fact of the matter is that while Preeti, again, I share his opinion on one thing, that she's a wonderful person, the fact of the matter is Aam Aadmi Party had nothing concrete in either its manifesto or otherwise to bring about change. On the fact, people of Delhi, and we saw on the ground is Shiv, there's God of everybody, 49 days they ran away, and when you run away, you are not fit to be in government.
Okay, this is going to get into a political war which is quite predictable, but I want to go back to Maha, Gaurav and Shiv for a quick roundup. On the ground today, this election is about those 10 crore first-time voters as well. Very quickly, starting with you, Gaurav, what's the sense that you were getting? You spoke to older people, but you also spoke to a lot of the young generation voters. Tell us what they want out of this election.
And the youngsters had the most heartening things to say. They came out in large numbers, they voted, they braved the sun and the queue because they wanted to bring about a positive change. They didn't vote on caste lines, they didn't vote on religious lines. They voted for an India that they wanted to see tomorrow, an India for which they say they have seen a roadmap and they want to see that strong India. We spoke to a large number of these youngsters and they said they're going to inspire more people to come out and vote to see the India they want in the times to come.
Shiv, go ahead.
Like Gaurav said, Maruk, an amazing impulse to change. And the fact that there has been such a large chunk of first-time voters means that, the possibility of lines getting blurred, the usual impulses becoming irrelevant is that much stronger. Now, I reported all day from a place like Chandni Chowk, where, cynicism is given way because of the new dynamics of this election, because of the new demographics as well, to actual optimism and impulse impulse to optimism of possible change, which hasn't been seen, in many of the recent elections. So on the ground, there appears to be less cynicism, the possibility of real change, also with all of these dynamics changing, one of the important things we're also seeing is that people expect things to happen much faster. They're fed up with promises, and they want to see things happen much faster.
Maha, one of the things in this election, and especially with the social media, is that youngsters, first-time voters are also part of the political narrative. They're part of this dialogue that is happening. Is that the sense that you got when you stood with those people in those lines as they were coming out and voting?
Well, absolutely, and I'll second both Gaurav and Shiv on that one. This is an aspirational set of people, Maruk, is what we need to understand, that they want change and they want that change coming from themselves, and therefore they realize the importance of casting their vote. That is why we have seen the first-time voters being very enthusiastic this time around, coming out in large numbers to vote and exercising their franchise. They no longer want to stay back home and treat the day of the voting as a holiday. They want to come out because they want to see change in the society. And I would also to some extent say, yes, they do not want to vote on caste or religious lines. However, one will have to wait for the results to see whether what they say to us is actually what they actually believe in and vote for change, or whether they are still going by what the elders in the family have been doing so long.
Interesting, and that is what is going to be the change this time around. To my three politicians, Dr. Patra, starting with you, 3 phases are over. What is the sense on the ground? And apart from the predictable, it's a Modi wave and we're going to win, I really want original answers from all 3 of you. Dr. Patra.
The very original answer is, I would say that the 2014 election is not an election, it is a revolt against the Congress.
Okay. Tehseen Poonawalla.
Only people who are fascist, only people who don't believe in the power of the ballot will talk about stuff like revolt. Revolt, when Modi ji won, that was an election. Similarly.
I said a different answer, Tehseen Poonawalla.
He got into rhetoric of revolt. Let me give a very specific...
Afraid of revenge and revolts nowadays.
I didn't interrupt you, but the fact of the matter is that the people of India are going to vote for somebody who does bring about a new India, an India where all their aspirations are met. That aspiration over the last decade has been met by the Congress, and that will continue to be met. It is the Congress, the results will surprise you no matter what the opinion polls say.
Preeti Sharma Menon, quick comment from you.
Definitely this is a new India surging forward. I mean, what your reporters are reporting from the ground, we see it across the state. We saw it in Nagpur. We saw unexpected huge turnouts there. We've seen it in remote villages in Vidarbha. So there is this huge responsibility among the people to be participating in the democratic process, and that I think is a fabulous achievement for the country.
Okay, on that note, I'm going to end this bulletin here. The special broadcast on a day when 91 of our reporters have been out in the field through the course of the day, getting us the best reports. But leaving you with some thoughts that have been sent out by people like you who've gone out and voted, and the kind of hope and resilience that you've shown in this dance of democracy. Thank you so much for watching.